Um, and my headphones talking to me. It's always the weirdest thing when they're talking to you and it like stops mid-sentence, like, hey, your headphones need to be recharged. So I'm gonna go through my little spiel of some updates that we got some cool stuff going on. And then I'm gonna go charge my headphones and pass it over to Scott. So again, this is EDU Endpoint Office Hours. We're excited you're here. Thanks for joining us today. Really quick to kick it off, I do want to remind everyone that next week is our Reimagine Education event. Satya Nadella himself, our awesome CEO, Brad Smith, president of Microsoft, as well as our vice presidents for education, Deidre and Paige, are going to be sharing some awesome updates of what's new in Microsoft education. So I know this group is more IT focused, but pass this along to your friends, your family, anyone who's interested in what's going on in the Microsoft education space. We're going to have some awesome updates. Again, I don't know what's coming. I've heard a few rumblings and rumors out there, but I don't actually know, so you can't ask me yet. I will learn the same day as you guys. Remember that I think, was it last year? Yeah, last year at the Reimagine event, we had the announcement of the Surface Laptop SE. So who knows what's in store from a hardware perspective? We'll see. We'll learn together, and then we can chat about it if there's something cool that we can share. But again, aka.ms/Microsoft Reimagine. Go ahead and sign up. Actually, I don't think you have to register. I think you can just stream it. So we're excited about that. But even cooler from y'all's perspective, check this out, guys. Endpoint privilege management. We've been talking a lot about the Intune premium suite that's coming out. There's still a lot of questions on availability and pricing and yada, yada, yada. However, we do have some little inklings of what is to come as part of that suite. One of the biggest feature sets that I think I've had the most customer questions on, Scott, Richard, you guys back me up. Maybe even Julie, you've probably had a lot of questions on this too, on endpoint privilege management, which is where we can actually grant certain applications the ability to be elevated on their own, built-in auditing controls. Again, still a lot of questions on how this process is going to work. But with that being said, this is your time as education customers to influence the product. So I worked with the product team for the endpoint privilege management feature, and they're hosting specific time slots for education customers to be interviewed, to give your feedback, learn a little bit more about this feature set, and then give some feedback on its current iteration, what capabilities exist today or going to be in the very near future, and then what's to come after that. So as promised, that's what this community is about, is being able to bring some of these things to bear a little bit sooner rather than later, get your input from an education perspective, both the smallest K-12 out there to the largest university system out there. We need your feedback to kind of influence the feature set. So this link, and I'll throw it in the chat, is the ability to go sign up for some interviews. There is an NDA that you will have to sign as part of the Microsoft Research project. So that's also included. I'll be sure to include that in the chat, but I would highly encourage you. The time slots are like the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. So next week. So definitely make some time in your schedule, go register for a session. And the product team is super, super excited to listen to you more than anything, but also an opportunity for you to learn a little bit about what's coming. So I'll throw these links in the chat. Go sign up. Help us help you create a solution that is going to benefit everyone. And with that, Scott, I will pass it over to you with some of the latest updates for Intune.
I'm muted. All right. Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone, wherever you're calling in from. Again, my name, for those I haven't met, I'm Scott Ellison. I'm one of the co-hosts of Endpoint Office Hours, and I'm glad that you're here today. So I just wanted to cover what was released in our last Intune update. So for those of you that may have not have seen this, last week, we rolled out the 2301 service release for Intune. And it had a lot of great features in it. and I'm going to highlight just a few of them. But if you want if you want to go and read the updates for yourself, just go to Bing or Google and type in what's new in Intune, and it'll take you straight to this page or whatever search engine that you would like to use. So a couple of features that I think are at least stood out to me that I'm going to cover in my few minutes. Configure whether you want to show config manager apps in the Windows company portal. So this is going to allow you to hide those duplicate apps that you may have both in configuration manager and Intune. You can easily set that up by going into the admin center and selecting the show or hide option. So where that specifically is if you click here on tenant administration, come down under end user experiences, under customizations, click on this edit button here. And once this page loads, we come down here to the bottom. There's this section down here called app sources. And this is also great if you want to show like enterprise, maybe you're using Azure AD for enterprise applications, Office Online apps, all of that can be shown in there. So a lot of customization that you can do in here, but this is a brand new, again, just one of the many new features that are in there. And can everybody see my desktop? Garrett, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Good.
Software updates for Mac OS are now generally available. This feature until last month was in preview. Previously, before this went GA, it would only work on devices that were that you had enrolled in Intune through Apple School Manager or Apple DEM, whatever they're calling it this week. Now that translates over to devices that are also that a user may have enrolled, and you flip the corporate, but is a supervised device. So anything running Mac OS 12 or later now can be updated via the software update policies in Intune for Mac OS. I think we've showed those before, but take a look at it. Maybe one of those things that you need to start looking at Intune as a viable option for Mac management. Autopilot diagnostics, again, those are also available. Those logs are now pulled in the Endpoint Manager Admin Center. So again, diagnostic logs are hugely great tool, especially you can pull that from hybrid joined devices and Intune only managed devices. That grabs Intune logs, config manager logs, autopilot, whatever you need. So it saves a lot of time if you have to open up a support case, but even if you need that for your own general troubleshooting. One of the other features that's going to be in the new Intune Premium Suite is now in preview is called a Microsoft Tunnel for mobile application management. This is great for scenarios where you don't want to have an MDM enrollment of the device, but you do want to be able to manage application data on the device. So if you do want, so what the MAM tunnel and is enabled for Android, and now we have it for iOS. Basically, it creates a VPN gateway that you can leverage from those devices if the device is being managed with MAM. So you can technically have this device enrolled in a third-party MDM solution, and then use MAM down at your application level. Probably one of the other ones that I felt. So we also have some new OEMs that support DFCI with that. So there's again Fujitsu devices, I think Panasonic also, and Surface. We added some new support inventory for multi-SIM devices for iOS and iPad iOS. Some new bulk actions for Android AOS AP, new settings in the app catalog, and then new filter types for a device's Azure AD join type. What that looks like is if you go here, and again, if you're not familiar with filters, filters are a way that you can use in targeting of devices, our apps and policies to your devices. And it allows you to include and exclude those devices from specific groups. So again, down here, this is a new property that was added. So again, you have your device types, and then if you just click on equals to, then you can see here, here's all of your join types: Azure AD, hybrid, Azure AD registered, and unknown. So what this is going to allow you to do is, let's say you have a specific policy that you set up in the settings catalog, and you want to only target that policy to a hybrid Azure AD join device. you can come in here, you can set this policy up, and then it will actually, one of the cool things is it will actually, again, you can preview this and you can see if a device fits this filter or not. So again, this workstation 2 for me is a hybrid join device. Again, it's just another thing that you can use to have more granular targeting of applications and policies in your Intune environment. So I think this is a neat feature, something I've been wanting for a long time, and now you can take advantage of it as well. So that is what is new in Intune 2301. All right, so let me stop sharing and then we'll go back to the slides. Let's see. Garrett, can you?
One moment. Yeah, pulling it back up. We're fun, but we're not necessarily graceful when it comes to transitions. We'll work on it.
So just a few other policies that we wanted to make you aware of. There is a new skilling snack called Windows Security Fundamentals. It's a great blog. There are 2 trainings in that. I think they're very useful. Take a look at that. So if you want to do some professional development around Windows, take a look at that training. And then we also, there's some new stuff there on the Update Policy Management CSP on Microsoft Learn. So just good stuff out there. And again, we'll have additional stuff for the next meeting, but those are the 3 that really stood out to us this week. So without further ado, we're going to get into our main topic, and I'm going to have the pleasure today to have Julie Andriacola with us. She is a senior escalation engineer with our fast track team, and her goal is to help customers with Windows 11 and deployments. She has an education background. She worked for a K-12 school system here in North Carolina prior to Microsoft. I've had an opportunity to work with her on several projects. She presents a lot internally, even to us, and is a wealth of knowledge. She has worked with some of our other education customers on Windows 11 deployments to help them. And we wanted to she did a topic internally for us on Windows 10 and Windows 11 management. And I just thought this would be great to hear her story, hear what she has to share, and realize that Windows 11 is just another version of Windows 10, and you can manage these side by side. So she can give you the gotchas with that. And Julie, I'm going to turn this over to you, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Scott. All right, let me get my slides up here. All right, so I'm going to move fairly quickly because there is quite a bit in this deck, and I want to make sure we have time for questions and such. So let's dive in. Stuff I'm going to be talking about is really about Windows 10, Windows 11. They need to live together because not all your hardware is capable of running Windows 11. And so that's what's made this so important. We're going to look at updating and servicing. What's the easy button for that? We've already just had a little nice demo on filtering, but let's talk about filtering and targeting. And then also, what do you need to think about in terms of policy? There are some caveats there and migrations for that, and then also leave some time for some Q&A. So let's dive right on in. The great thing about it is that everything that you're doing today to manage Windows 10 will work with Windows 11. So that's one of the really nice things of what we did. It's not the big leap that Windows 7 to Windows 10 was. In fact, I haven't had someone with an app compatibility issue yet. There's no change to licensing. Again, it looks very similar to what they've used before, with the exception of that start menu. We'll talk a little bit about that, but it's just like any other feature update. So it is new. It looks different from that start menu, and we weren't necessarily expecting it since, there's that saying that Windows 10 was the last version we were ever going to see. That's not true, but it is true that Windows 11 is here today, and it is just another feature update. There are some things that you may need to do, though, because it does have a new look and feel with that start menu. You may need to update some docs and screenshots. Maybe there's some help desk training. We've got a Windows onboarding kit here that has some things that are useful for that. We've got some kind of cheat sheets for help desk on shortcuts and shortcut and hotkey listings there. So there's some information that you can grab there to help with that. Again, it's great that everything is still the same as far as how we're going to manage things. And you'll see as I go through this, moving into the Windows Update for Business, that's really going to give you the best experience in moving from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Still may need to verify your applications, but like I said, this is not a big change from Windows 10, and I have not yet seen something that wasn't compatible. We do still have the insurance from our Aperture team to help you should you find something that is not compatible. We've got a number of tools that make life easier and really a lot better tooling than we did when we went from 7 to 10. Endpoint analytics, one of my favorite little pieces to Intune. We also have some upgrade readiness reporting that is fairly new, so we're going to take a look at that today. We also have the Windows Update for Business reports. They are more expansive than what was formerly Update Compliance. And again, I mentioned that Windows Onboarding Toolkit. Then there are things that you're going to need to think about and take some time with, and that is that when a machine is born and when it starts off its life as Windows 11, all of the security stuff is turned on. That includes Credential Guard in 22H2. So sometimes that has some ramifications with certain older wireless networks, for example. So you are going to want to test that. Machines that upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11, most of those security settings will just come over. So you may find that you see some differences between a machine that starts life as Windows 11 versus one that's gone through the upgrade process, that in-place upgrade. There's a lot of really nice stuff within Windows 11. You know, the meeting experiences, they've really worked at improving that. If you're taking a look at our Surface ARM device, that is super cool with its the NPU, neural, well, I never remember what it all stands for, but it's got that AI processor. It's a separate processor from the chipset. Really makes some cool experiences and helps, especially with video conferencing, since many of us spend lots and lots of time on video calls. And then also passwordless provisioning, we have some improvements there as well. A couple things that you'll need to think about is policy separations if you are still using GPOs, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then also feature targeting. You know, we looked at those filters, super useful if you need to differentiate between policies going to 10 versus 11. All right, hardware readiness. This is really the hard part of Windows 11, and that we are seeing quite a difference in the number of machines that are ready to go. Tooling to get ready. I mentioned endpoint analytics. I mentioned the Windows Update for Business reports, and those are pretty extensive. I'm not going to dive deeply into them. Hopefully you all have had some sessions on that. If not, they'd be great things to talk about in the future as well. And then again, this new Update for Business reporting really helps with that whole, all right, what's going on in my environment? Why are machines not moving to Windows 11? A lot more visibility than we've ever had before on that. Okay, so let's take a little bit deeper. These are two of my favorite reports that are within Intune, where you can see what's happening with your feature updates readiness. So this is just a screenshot here. You'll need to come in and generate these each time. So it's under reports. You'll see the Windows Feature Update Readiness Report. It is still in preview. You do need to have the diagnostics turned on. We've got a link here for the specifics on that. It's very similar to endpoint analytics, so you probably are covered, but you may need to check that if you're not seeing the information populate as you want to. You need to pick what version of Windows you're going to, which is great because if you're looking at moving to Windows 10 22H2, these reporting is helpful for that as well. You're also going to define your scope key. Even if you don't do scopes, you at least need to pick that default one, and then that enables you to pick this generate again or generate. And this report will live kind of statically for about 3 days for whenever you log in. So once you generate it, it won't automatically change and update during those 3 days unless you come in and click this generate again. And that's just for some efficiency pieces. Certainly can generate them as much as you want, but just know that if you were to pop back in here tomorrow, you would see the same numbers regardless of what's happened within your environment. And we note this here, we give you a timestamp of when that information was current. So what's really cool about this report? Well, it's a list of all your devices. So in this, we've got 8,000 some devices, but we give a readiness state, right? So it's going to note what devices have been upgraded, what devices need to be replaced because they are not going to meet that hardware check. And then if they've got risk associated with that. So in this particular screenshot, all of these devices that could be upgraded, but they're low risk. And where that's coming from is the app issues. So in this particular screenshot, we've got one potential app issue. So if you were familiar with desktop analytics, remember how we could kind of surface a risk score, but it was a little clunky to use. A lot of people kind of looked at it and then decided it was too much work. This is kind of the next iteration of that, where we know that there may be certain app issues. And if we do know that and can detect that your machine has that particular app on it, we'll flag it up as a potential issue for you to take a look at. So it's not a definitive that it's going to be an issue, but it's like a, hey, you might want to take a look at this one. Whereas these ones with 0 issues, you're much more apt to just go ahead and plow forward with that. But this is the one I really like too, and that's driver issues, because oftentimes that is something that does need to change as we move from one version to the next. And it's often a pain to go through and figure out what drivers do you need to be aware of. And that leads me right into the next report, which is where it's going to give you the specifics of that. So again, you're going to be doing that same thing, picking your target OS and generating that report. But instead of getting a list of devices, you're going to get a list of applications and drivers that might not move forward in the way that would, they may have some risk associated with them. And what I love is that we are telling you what it is, for one, how many devices we've detected that are affected by it, the risk of it all, but then we're saying what that potential issue is. Now, these are pretty broad, but it gives you some clues. So, you know, in these applications, these particular applications aren't going to move forward during the upgrade. So the way that that application is put together, we've seen this in Windows 10 as well. But what it does is it lets you know what these are. As you can see, they're all related to, you know, elements of a device. Go to that manufacturer website and understand what's going on there. And then drivers too. Again, pulling up a driver that says it's not going to migrate to the new OS. So may still be fine. There may be an inbox driver that works perfectly well that's going to take its place. But again, it lets you know that you've got 28 devices with this particular driver and version. And so those are the ones, make sure you pull one of those in your testing just to see what's going to happen. So it really helps you narrow down to work on potential problems and not just starting from 0 going, I have no idea what might be affected. Let's just test everything. So really like these reports. So check them out and take a look at that. And then the other resource that I particularly like is the Windows Release Health. And I find that a lot of customers don't know that this is here. We do have this on our public facing page, but if you come into your admin.microsoft.com portal, come in here, let's show all, and then come under health. You'll see Windows Release Health. This is super helpful as you're working towards Windows 11 or even the new version of Windows 10. What are the known issues? What do we know about? Do you click right here? And here's the list of the latest issues for Windows 11. Again, all of this is available on our public facing, but it's kind of a pain to find. It's not laid out as quickly. I can move very quickly through this, but here, compatibility issue with a driver. So I can click on this and I can get more information. And it's a lot of really good information. It's going to go fairly in depth of what's happening. And give you some specifics on versions. Sometimes we can be more specific here because it's within a portal than we can on our public facing for third-party legal reasons, other things that come into consideration. But because it's within your tenant, sometimes we can be a little bit more detailed. The other thing that we do is we're going to show you the safeguard IDs. So this is still a little bit dated. They're still referring to update compliance, but these safeguard IDs will show up within the Windows Update for Business reporting. So you still have the opportunity to leverage those, and it's going to let you know what's happening there. Also give you some workarounds. So again, really great spot. A lot of people don't know it's here, so I always like to bring that up because I just find this super useful. And I'm going to pause. I've just gone over a whole bunch of stuff. I don't see the chat. Anything, questions about anything I've talked about so far?
The only one is, what if the Windows release help and many of the items on your list are not showing up? Do you have any experience with that?
So like you see a safeguard ID and you can't find it?
I'm assuming so, but
or you're finding
an
issue that's not there.
let's see if
Can I unmute?
Yeah, please.
I asked the question. I was following along with you there, and as far as I know, I'm admin, so I only see directory sync status and software updates underneath the health, and nothing else. So I was wondering how to enable that or what.
Yeah, it's a rights thing. So you're missing some rights. So there's an Intune. There's it's a service. I should have grabbed this. It's a service administrator right. It is a little bit different. Intune administrators used to be included, but it may have changed recently. But I can get back to you with the link of what the rights are for this, so that you can see this. Yeah, it's kind of annoying that they stick it over here and that it's not available for lots of people to find. And feel free to provide feedback on that, because I have. Yeah, so that's why it's a rights issue. And if you do have the rights that are listed in our docs that you need for this, then open up a support case. There was a period of time where it kind of disappeared for a whole bunch of people, but they fixed that and it came back. I know it disappeared in my lab, but as you can see, it has come back. So perhaps your environment may still be affected by whatever it is that made it disappear. But just make sure you have the right rights, and if not, just open up a support case, because there's probably something in the back end that got mistweaked or something. Good question.
I just dropped the link in chat along with
Perfect.
the roles that don't have access to that and the documentation for it, so they can see if getting you one of those roles you may need.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so let's talk about the whole updating process. So one thing I'm very passionate about is Windows Update for Business. I really do think it works so well for what we need, and it gives us that intelligence that we're looking for. And then I love the little dog. This is the wolf bee, wolf and bee. Anyhow, but yeah. So one of the reasons that Windows Update for Business works so well in mixed environments is your update ring. You don't need to specify a version of Office. Of Windows. It's going to deliver the Windows updates that machine needs, regardless of where it is. It could be a Windows 10 machine and a Windows 11 machines in the same ring. The Windows Update for Business will deliver the quality updates that are pertinent to that. You don't need to worry about that you're deploying the correct version. Windows Update for Business will take care of that for you. My favorite thing too is if you're going to be leveraging WoofBee and allowing drivers, and you're using autopilot, you will never have to deal with driver packages again. So one of the things we talked about, drivers can be something that needs to be updated when going to a new version of Windows. And driver packages are a pain. Nobody likes them. Everybody hates them. And you can get rid of them by just allowing Windows Update for Business to take care of that and leveraging autopilot. And so that's one of the things you may want to consider. I've had a number of customers, large customers, say, hey, Windows 11 machines are going to come in. We're going to bring them in through Windows autopilot. And they did just that. They turned on WoofBee with drivers, and they didn't have to load all of those model driver packs into Configuration Manager. So consider that a challenge there that you may want to look at. Safeguard holds are super handy, right? We do a lot of testing to see how if these devices or models are going to be impacted moving to the next version, well, guess what? We have telemetry. We know that information in Microsoft already, and Safeguard Holds is a way of protecting you and making sure that your upgrade experiences for all your end users go nicely. And then there's also AutoPatch. That's a newer service of ours that can do even more automation so that you as an admin don't have to. Then as a quick review, when you are looking, if you haven't dived into Windows Update for Business, I often get questions about what all these update settings mean. So just looking at this with a calendar really kind of helps you understand what you want to do. So your quality update deferral periods, that's the number of days from Patch Tuesday that the update becomes available for that machine to start to download and install. Now it's not going to reboot, right? Because that's not what we've set up, but it will prompt the user to do that update through a toast notification. And then, and then you're going to set a deadline. If you don't set a deadline, then nothing's going to make that user make that reboot happen. So we've set a deadline for 3 days. So that means by the 20th. So if they're additive. So in 10 days from Patch Tuesday, that machine will get that update installed, downloaded, and that user will have to have rebooted. Now, let's say the user is out this week for vacation, or maybe school's not in session, or whatever it is, and everybody comes back that Monday and they're past the deadline. Well, guess what? There's a grace period that we've configured. We recommend this. And now they're going to get a couple more days to get that reboot in before that deadline is enforced. So a lot of great things here. Think about this calendar as you set up your Windows Update for business policies. All right, so that's the policies, but let's talk about that's the update rings. Let's talk about feature updates, because one of the things that's really annoying is this having to guess or determine how many days after a feature update's released that it gets installed. Well, we're much more used to as admins saying, okay, this group, I now want this group to update. And you can do that by setting up something similar to this example. So what I've done is I have done 3 Azure AD groups. I've got my pilot, my expanded pilot, and my production. I have made a update ring policy, WFB ring policy in Intune for each one of these rings and assigned it to it. Now my feature deferrals are 0. I've got for my pilot, I want that to install on Patch Tuesday, so that's set to 0. My update ring 2, I want to have a couple days go past to make sure my pilot devices are okay. So my quality deferral here is 3. Now you'll notice that my feature deferral in all of these is 0, and I'll get back to that in a minute. Again, set the deadline so they match what your environment wants to do. And then here in my example, I've got the quality deferral of 7 days for my production ring. All right, so that's great for monthly updates. I've covered there. But hey, I've got this feature deferral. Those are my moving to my next versions of Windows. They're all set to 0. What's controlling that? And here I'm leveraging the feature update policy. So this is a separate policy. It's kind of annoying. It gets it a little bit more confusing, but this is how you can make it work and really simplify your life. So set up 2 feature update policies. One is going to be Windows 10 21H2. Let's say that's what your environment currently is at, and you want everything to stay right where it is. So that's what you've got set up in your environment. Then you've got to start moving to Windows 11. So you set up a separate policy for that. So those, so everything's there, and the way this is set up, this policy is not assigned yet. Okay, so we're getting ready to go. So let's go. All right. So we're going to take that first pilot and we're going to unassign it here and assign it over here. So nothing else has to change, just this one assignment. And now these machines here will begin their upgrade process to Windows 11. Once you're happy with that, hey, that looks pretty good. I've gotten the information I need to. Maybe it's a month, maybe it's 2 months. It's whatever you want it to be. When you're ready, you're going to say, all right, we're moving to expanded pilot. All you have to do is move the assignment. You don't need to touch any of your update rings or anything like that. Just move the assignment. Again, let that period of time go by. Check that out. See what that is. Everything's how you want. You're ready to do everybody. Now you simply move it to your production ring. So now all of these are being held at this particular version, which says if you're not at this version machine, upgrade to it. Now, a couple things here to note. If if the hardware is not good for Windows 11, the machine won't upgrade. It'll just continue to stay where it's at. The other thing that if you may have noticed here, that I switched this to gradual rollout. One of the really cool features that's within these feature update policies is the ability to say, instead of immediately starting, say that you want your machines to upgrade over the next 3-month period, because you don't want all 10,000 machines happening at once. So over 3 months, you want them all to upgrade to Windows 11. You set the gradual rollout, you set your start, and you set your end. And then you say, I want maybe 7 days in between each group. So you don't have to create all these groups. In the old days, you'd have to go in, big man, make all those different collections, decide who's in which collection, and then go from there. Here, Intune will automatically create those groups. They're not actual groups. It's using the Windows Update Deployment Service to magically just section off your environment so that it does go gradually. So great way to kind of do that and move forward. As I mentioned, what about when you're ready to take those machines that can't run Windows 11 from a hardware, and they're going to need their own feature update policy assignment. So they're going to need one that's going to take them to Windows 10 22H2. Right now, there's not a good method to do it. We flagged it up as an issue. The product groups are working on it, but I don't have anything to offer you that's an easy way. So a couple ways that you can do it is you can first just go ahead, use Windows Update for Business, do Windows 11 to the entire environment, whatever's left, plop that in a group, and then change that, and then put that feature update assignment to 10 22H2 for those remaining devices. That's one way to do it. If you're co-managed, take advantage of your configuration baselines. So we have a PowerShell script that detects hardware readiness. You can get that at aka.ms HW readiness script. Make a configuration baseline out of that. When you do a configuration baseline, you can, in Configuration Manager, you can actually have it create collections based on the results of that baseline. So it will create 2 separate collections for you, and then you can mirror the membership of those collections up into Azure AD groups. So that's a little tip. Not everyone knows. If you are still having co-managed devices, you can have the membership of your collections be an Azure AD group, and it's a setting within Configuration Manager. Very handy, especially if you've already have these nice little groups all set up already. You don't need to redo them yourself. You can allow this mirroring of the membership right up into Azure AD groups. And then finally, you could kind of maybe come up with some creative custom scripting to import machines based on the WFB reporting. Haven't seen anyone do that yet, but it's an option as well. Any questions on using Windows Update for Business and policy and such? Laura, I see your hands up.
Hey, this is all great stuff. I did want to ask you a question about that first bullet, or well, actually, the third sub bullet, creating an Azure AD group of the remaining devices. How do you know what's remaining? I just didn't follow that along as far as, yeah, I send a deployment out to all my devices. I've put them in, I've assigned all of my rings. How do you know which ones are the remaining?
Well, you'd have to wait a period of time, right? And say, okay, it looks like based on my reporting, everybody has gone, and the ones that are left are not capable. And so I'm going to just create a device group with a query looking on the operating system version. That's everything that's still Windows 10. And then, so again, okay. Yeah, it's not remember I started with saying there's no simple way to do it.
Yeah.
This is just some creative ideas that we've come up with to deal with our current situation. So
sure.
But yeah, okay. We're all waiting for either the endpoint analytics or the Windows Update for reporting to have the ability to create collections based on the stuff that those two things are returning, because either one of those would be helpful, but not here yet.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, so filtering and targeting, we talked, Scott did a quick example there of the new targeting based on the Azure AD join or hybrid join, but you can use these to help filter. OS version is a filter, so consider using that if you need to have certain policies only go to Windows 11 or certain policies only go to Windows 10. Or exclude them is a great way to do it. Maybe there's a new policy that doesn't apply to Windows 10. You can exclude those simply by using the filters. So consider creating filters. Also, maybe you have some models. Maybe you have a set of models that you know won't go to Windows 11. You can use that filter in some of your planning. All right, autopilot. We've had some great improvements. If you haven't started playing with Windows 11, there's the diagnostics page is available within Windows 11, and it's much better. Also, a common question that I get: okay, once you've upgraded to 11 and you do an autopilot reset, it's going to go back to Windows 11. You're not going to have to go all the way back to Windows 10. So do know that. And here's an example of the diagnostics page. Again, this is an improvement that we've got in Windows 11. And you can export logs, or you can now wait for Intune to nicely collect them for you. So, okay, so GPOs. So the good news is 99% of the policies are the same between Windows 10 and Windows 11. Windows 11 is all backwards compatible to Windows 10. However, there is a small amount of policies that are available in Windows 10 but aren't in Windows 11. So we've got some references there for you to use. And again, it's a small amount of policies. The easiest way to deal with it is to go ahead and use Intune. And because Intune doesn't have to deal with all this ADMX stuff, it's going to deliver what you set up to do that. But if you do need to use a central store, there is a method to do it. I've got a link here. We'll provide these slides. It's kind of a little convoluted, but you can, if you're using a central store to do GPOs, and that's the way that you need to do it. We do have a blog about how you can go about doing it. It's not the nicest, neatest thing in the world, but hopefully the policies that are in this gap are not ones that you're concerned with, in which case, no need to worry about it. Go with your Windows 11 ADMX for all your machines and you'll be just fine. Okay, application compatibility. As I mentioned, I have not seen application compatibility issues. We've got all these great tools that can kind of help you understand some of what to look for. I didn't have a particular slide on this, but remember your endpoint analytics has application reliability as one of the things that it looks at. So as you start to get your machines on Windows 11, take a look at those reports of application reliability. Maybe you do have an app that's crashing all the time on Windows 11 and nobody's reporting it. Endpoint analytics can surface that up for you. We also have Aperture. If you are identifying any issues, they're going to be able to help you. So the same promise that we've had for Windows 10 extends right on into Windows 11. We also have a program called TestBase. I don't see many customers, actually I haven't had a customer yet use it, but it does allow you to kind of create this VM testing structure with your app up in Azure and have this kind of automated testing against monthly updates as well as feature updates. So it does take some effort to set up. It's not a simple method, but if you have some really critical applications that you want tested every month, it may be worth the investment. All right, so steps you should be taking now. Number one, and I don't even have this on the list, make sure you know how many devices in your environment are not capable from a hardware perspective of running Windows 11. You'll need to do the math. Will you be replacing all of those devices before October 2025? Because that's end of service for Windows 10. And so you won't be able to upgrade any more Windows 10 machines to a new version of Windows 10 after that point. No more updates. So make sure you've done the math on that. Make sure you've communicated to your leadership to say, hey, this is how many devices we need to replace before October 2025, so that that can be considered in the whole budgeting standpoint. The more you update it, as new machines come in, they're coming in as Windows 11, you're leveraging autopilot. All those machines are ones you won't have to come back and update later. Don't downgrade them to Windows 10 and then have to upgrade them later. That's just a lot of extra work that you're putting on yourself. Leverage those reporting that I showed you. We didn't really go into a lot of detail on the endpoint analytics and Windows Update for Business reports, but there's good stuff in there. Did show you the Windows Health dashboard there. There's also that Windows onboarding kit. It has templates for emails telling people that you can email out to your end users about here's things that you could be using. There's also, in fact, I thought I updated this, but maybe not. We now have combined our Intune and Windows customer connection programs to now be the Microsoft Management Connection Program. And those are excellent calls that you can join, hear about all the NDA stuff. Actually, I have that on my next slide. That's right. And then finally, if you want and you need help from Fast Track, you are trying to use Windows Update for Business and a lot of the stuff that I talked about, then yeah, leverage Fast Track and we can help you with those things. And then finally, I've got a list of resources. There's 2 trainings. They're self-paced learn modules that I think are really good and worth time. This first one is really about security. You want to know what's different in Windows 11 and how it's more secure. Take some time to go through this particular course. Need some more information on and get better at understanding how to do the modern updating, Windows Update for Business, take a look at this particular one. We also have some new guided simulations specifically for IT pros. So if you're looking to skill up either yourself, your help desk, take a look at these new guided simulations we have. Here's the link to join that connection program that I mentioned. We talked about the Windows Release Health and release information. Take a look at those. We've got some videos here on the tech community where other people have talked about their journey to Windows 11 and what worked really well for them. And again, the more you can get your devices to be cloud native, the easier the path can be as well. So that's it. Questions? I don't see the chat here. Let's see if I bring that.
Thank you, Julie. That was a great presentation. Again, if anybody has questions, this is a great opportunity to ask. Even if you're not planning on Windows 11 this year, definitely go ahead and just put those questions out there or put them in chat.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy your Windows 11 updates.
Is there any, thanks, Julie, we appreciate your time today, and we hope we can have you back again at some point in the future. Garrett, do you want to stop recording and just use the last information on here to open it up for any issues? I think we got a little bit of time left before we're done. If anybody has some questions they want to ask in general.
Yeah, absolutely.